Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and Accio headphones and let the magic begin. Apostasy, Chapter 2. Do you trust me? If the glares had been bad before, they were mutinous now. In the absence of her wand, Hermione had taken to twirling her combat knives in warning. It wouldn't be the first time someone had attacked her in retaliation for her actions, or for simply existing. She ate in the dining hall with everyone else who gave her a wide berth, and other than that, she stayed in her room. Even her morning training sessions had stopped. The obvious exception, of course, was when Kingsley tried to reprimand her for her actions, and put her on scrubbing duties in addition to supporting Ron's declaration of house arrest. She had scoffed, stood, and told him that if he wanted that to happen, he would have to imperio her to do it because she wouldn't be doing it of her own free will, before promptly pulling the fingers at him and strolling from his office. If it had been her and someone had told her that, she probably would have done it just to prove a point, but not Kingsley. No, because that would be breaking his precious moral compass. Realistically, they couldn't make her do anything she didn't want to, and since she had lost all respect for the wizard, she had no inclination to indulge him either. In fact, over the last 7 days, as her anger over Ron's actions grew, Hermione had become more and more defiant. Ginny supported her actions and loudly reminded everyone that they wouldn't be happy with someone stealing and breaking their wands either. She and Harry weren't speaking at all after she had punched Ron in the face for saying that Hermione has become a liability. That morning, a group had been sent on a supply run. Ginny had initially refused to go without Hermione, but eventually Hermione had convinced her on the grounds that she might be able to pick up some more cigarettes and a bottle of alcohol. England was operating on wartime protocol. The Muggle government had issued a curfew, and businesses were only to run if they came under essential services. Supply was limited and usually expensive if you were a Muggle. But they weren't Muggles, and the Ministry was no longer monitoring acts of magic performed on Muggles, as a number of those incidents were overwhelming. There was also the fact that the government was being run by Death Eaters at this point, who couldn't care less about the statutes of secrecy anymore either. Ginny had been swayed by Hermione's reasoning and gone reluctantly. That had been hours ago, and Hermione was getting worried. They should be back by now. Supply groups ran in groups of 12, split into 2 teams for efficiency. It was because of her worry that Hermione had taken with pacing the foyer. With any luck, someone will take out Ginevra and we'll have one less psycho to deal with. The voice of Romalda Vane floated upwards, clearly unaware of her presence. Hermione lurched forward and yanked her backward by the hair, slamming her against the foyer wall, a knife to her throat. Elise, who had been walking with Romalda, screamed. Romalda squealed. "What did you just say?" Hermione hissed. "Oh, Morgana, get off me, you crazy bitch," Romalda shouted, annoyed. "You hope Ginny dies, do you? Well, I'll tell you what, Bane. You better hope she doesn't, because if she does, I can't guarantee I won't burn this place to the ground with you all in it." "Mrs. Granger," Kingsley's voice boomed from the base of the stairs, "unhand her at once." Hermione glared into the black-haired witch's wide, terrified eyes. "You all think I'm unhinged for killing a few Death Eaters, and yet you want to creep around the house making comments like that, wishing for one of the people keeping you alive to die?" Hermione's laugh sounded hollow to her ears. "I'll remember the next time I'm covering your subpar hexes on the battlefield, Bane." "Miss Granger, final warning, do not make me stun you." Kingsley stood at the end of the hall. Romilda would no doubt go running off to anyone who would listen the second Hermione let her go, spouting about how she had tried to kill her. She was tempted to push it and see if Kingsley had the balls to do it, but there were several loud cracks and suddenly the foyer was full of people. Hermione's grip dropped immediately as she focused instead on the carnage before her. Ginny was fuming, positively steaming with how angry she was. On the mat lay the corpses of 3 of their people. Everyone else had varying degrees of injury. Ginny herself had a thick, deep gash sliced into her upper arm, which hung limply at her side, dripping blood everywhere. "Patils, MAR!" Hermione shouted before Kingsley could process what he was seeing. It was a shorthand that they had developed for the message galleons. MAR was medical attention required. Padma appeared at the top of the stairs in a hurry. "Holy shit, lab. Going to need you too, sweetheart," she yelled over her shoulder. The Patil twins had been trained fully by Madame Pomfrey before she had died, but Lavender Brown was still in training under them. From down the hall, Pavardi came running. Non-emergency in the sitting room. Kings, help me get Morgan in the ER. Morgan had her stomach sliced open, her innards on full display. It was a miracle she hadn't torn in half with a splinch operating like that. The ER had no doubt once been an office, but as it was the closest room with the door to the operation point in the house, it had been converted into the twins' miniature emergency room. You asshole, Ginny rounded on her brother. I hope you're happy. You're too stubborn to admit that you were wrong, aren't you? None of this would have happened if you had pulled your head out of your ass for 5 minutes. It's bad enough that you kept my fighting partner home. You had to be so arrogant as to throw our procedures out the window. Now we have 3, probably soon 4, dead, all for the sake of your fucking ego. She stepped toward the visibly shaken man, jabbing her still good hand at him. We work in 2 teams for a fucking reason. We have fighting partners for a reason. We separate for a fucking reason. We don't drag our teams on hour-long hikes to a damn drop zone for a fucking reason. Ginny screamed, blood dripping continuously down her arm. I tried to tell you all of this. Your issue with our ability to end a life does not give you the right to put everyone's at risk to prove a point you failed to prove, by the way. Ginny, Harry growled from somewhere behind Hermione. Stay out of it, Harry. Shut up, Harry. Ginny and Hermione snarled at the same time. Ron was shaking, silent tears streaming down his face. This is on you, Ron. Their deaths, this is all on you, she hissed at her older brother, shoving him in the chest before turning back on him. Ron hadn't been on the field as much as Ginny and her. That wasn't to say he hadn't been on the field often, but definitely not as often as them. He liked to think himself a strategic planner, but the reality was, a lot of the times when shit hit the fan, all of his plans crumbled to dust. Hermione and Ginny had learned what worked best through trial and error and developed strict rules for missions based on it. It's because of their experience and skills in fighting on all fronts and styles that they had been put in charge of the combat teams, much to everyone's dismay. It seemed that Ron had ignored that Ginny had been as involved in their creation, and she was right. The Order had paid the price. Kingsley had returned and tried to sort the rest of the injured. I will not be going on any more missions without Hermione. If you have an issue with it, then tell it to someone else, because I don't give a hippogriff's right ass cheek, she snapped before storming upstairs. Hermione ran after her, catching up to her as Ginny entered one of the bathrooms. Could you? Ginny held out her arm and nodded towards her casting arm. Hermione sighed and stepped forward, taking the wand in her hand. The twins are probably better. I haven't really focused on healing, Gin. You know that. If I wait that long, then I might lose function, and we both know it, which is why you're going to do it anyway. Hermione nodded and began the incredibly slow process of melding the flesh back together. Who? Think it was not Senior. He was aiming for my neck. Hermione lifted an eyebrow. I bet he was. What happened? Ginny growled. We landed at what I thought would be the drop zone, but Ron said we would be doing things differently today, that we would stick together rather than splitting up because 12 sets of eyes are better than 6, and 12 people presented a better front than 6 that could be picked off. I tried to point out that it wasn't how we did things. I didn't even get to point out why, because the bastard hexed me with a silencer. So then he's leading the group through town because he didn't even land near the shop because he thought the sounds of our operation would be louder than a whole ass group stumbling their way through town. Of course, the prick left me silent. Hermione frowned. She had a feeling where this was going. So when I spotted movement, I couldn't even alert anyone because he had put me at the back where no one could see my signals. I tried to tap on his shoulder and he snapped at me that he didn't want to hear it right now. Well, of course, that told them exactly where we were, didn't it? A second later, they had apparated around us, threw down some kind of dome charm, kept us trapped in that spot, couldn't apparate out. At least Ron had the common sense to lift the hex at that point. Hermione took extra care to line a slice of nerve up properly. Ginny's eyes watered and she gritted her teeth, hissing her words through her pain. Philip was dead in a second, Wendy next, and then Yasmin last. I was throwing curses left, right, and center, but everyone was disjointed. No one had stuck by their partners, and I was the only one killing anyone. Ron started yelling at me to stop killing people. I yelled that I'd kill him if he didn't shut the fuck up. That's when Not hit me. Just managed to dodge it, hitting anything vital. I don't know who it was, but I killed someone, and the dome went down. I yelled 6 and apparated us out of there before they could throw up another cage. 6 was code for everyone to link up immediately. It didn't matter if the people next to you were injured or dead. If they were within reach, you grabbed on, preferably on 2 different fronts. I could kill him. I think I could actually kill him. All because he would rather dig his heels in rather than admit he was wrong. Morgan is probably going to die. Yaz, Bill, and Wendy are all dead, and they didn't even get supplies. A whole day wasted, and probably 4 down, all for the sake of his ego. Hermione stepped back, looking at the thick white scar now running horizontally across Ginny's upper arm. I think that's as good as I'm going to get it. You will still need one of the twins to check it over. Can you wiggle your fingers? Ginny concentrated hard on her hand, and eventually her fingers moved in the motion she wanted. But it caused the hiss of pain to escape the redhead. Hermione sighed in relief. She had function at least. Whatever she had missed, the twins could fix. While her wound had been open, Ginny had been gushing blood down her arm that had dripped from her fingers to pool on the ground. Hermione handed Ginny her wand back and assessed the amount of blood loss. You will need a blood replenishing potion. I'll leave you to shower if you think you're okay. Then go see the twins. When you're done with the twins, come up to my room. Think there might be a 3rd bottle of vodka left, and I still have a couple of cigarettes. I should avoid downstairs for a bit, lest I do something unforgivable. Hermione joked sarcastically. Ginny laughed and nodded her head. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Mai. Hermione headed up to the attic to hunt down the vodka. It'd be much easier with a wand and an osteo, but oh well. Having eventually found it and retrieved the cigarettes, as well as pocketing a gift she had for Ginny, she climbed out the window. She had planned on surprising the redhead with it for her birthday in a few weeks, but after today, she wanted to take no chances. There's still 5 smokes left, so it would be okay for her to have one now. She swung down onto the ledge and squeezed herself into the corner so that Ginny would have room when she eventually made her way out. There was a nice breeze displacing some of the heat of the mid-afternoon sun, and in the distance was the buzz of bees. It was peaceful. It was moments like this, slow and golden, that Hermione felt the closest to the old version of herself. Like if she had this for the rest of her life, she might be able to reverse some of the damage she had done. She didn't know how long she had sat there. If not for the movement below, she might have drifted into a trance. She looked down to see Harry Potter, hand in hand with Elise Morgan, and jogging towards the garden shed. That slimy, 2-timing fucker. And now? Really? She didn't waste any time scampering back up onto the roof. The second the shed door shut, she checked the bathroom first. Empty. She peered into the sitting room downstairs. No Ginny. She strode to the ER and threw the door open. Padma was checking over the readings on her arm. Garden shed, Hermione said before stalking back out. Hermione was there before Ginny had even appeared at the back door. The disgusting sounds of flesh slapping on flesh escaped under the door. Her face turned upward as Harry grunted, and Elise moaned what was clearly a fake moan. She wasted no more time and opened the door. Harry scrambled away from Elise, who, for a second time that day, screamed in fright at Hermione's sudden appearance. Harry tripped backwards over a bucket and landed on his ass, his softening member on full display. How utterly gross and pathetic. Hermione was staring down at Harry with a sneer of disgust when Ginny finally caught up to her. Ginny took in the scene before her, and slow, disbelieving laugh echoed around the shed with her as the source. Are you kidding me? Elise Morgan. If you're going to cheat on me, Harry, at least do it with someone better than me. No one's better than you, Hermione mumbled under her breath. Ginny raised her fist, and Hermione bumped it with her own. Harry finally scrambled back to his feet and put his gear away. That, Ginny, that right there. You find out I'm having an affair and you're fist-bumping Hermione. Elise is actually a lovely girl and no, actually she isn't. But she is easy and stoked your ego, Hermione interrupted. I am not talking to you. You stopped being my Hermione a long time ago, and you've been dragging Ginny down with you for far too long as well. Just this once, would you please butt the fuck out? Harry sighed heavily. Look, Harry, it's fine. Hermione and I are going for a drink now. You and I are done, finally. So you're free to continue this little fling with Elise, and I can move on to someone who can actually make me come. Ginny tugged at Hermione's arm, leading her back towards the house. They made it halfway down the hallway toward the apparition point when Ron looked between them and Harry, who was running to catch up with them. Oh, she caught you, huh? Ginny and Hermione stopped, both slowly turning to look at the older redhead. Wait a minute. You knew? Ginny growled. Ron's cheeks reddening. Well, yeah, Ginny, most people do. It's hardly a secret, and when you act the way you do, who can blame him? Both witches stared at him for a moment in disbelief. Excuse me? Ginny asked, in a dangerously calm manner. Well, you have a tendency to act like a bit of a bitch, Jen. Ginny nodded slowly at her brother with a look that could kill before dragging Hermione down the hallway and apparating them into what looked like Cornwall. It had been a long time since she and Ginny had visited here. It seemed to be doing as well as anywhere else given the war zone environment. Ginny was already slinking down the alley and unlocking the back door of the store. Keep a lookout, she whispered before disappearing inside. Hermione wasn't sure exactly how good a lookout she would be, given she only had her knives on her, but she glanced around anyway. Ginny reappeared a few minutes later with 2 cartons of cigarettes and a bottle of gin. Right, grab one. Hermione did, and they were whisked away again, only to reappear on top of the hillside. Trees surrounded them. Ginny sat atop an old stone retaining wall. Where are we? Hermione looked around. Dartmoor, Ginny grumbled back. Hermione sat next to her and took a bottle she was offering. It's pretty here, Hermione observed, and took the cigarette she was being handed. Is it odd that I'm not even surprised by Harry's actions? I'm more surprised by Ron than anything, Ginny asked, exhaling into the afternoon air. No, I don't think so. You and Harry have been on separate paths for a long time. Hermione passed her the bottle. I think it comes down to familiarity, and that's it. You haven't actually loved him in a few years now. Ginny hummed in agreement, whereas Ron, for all his faults, is still your big brother, and so he was always expected to fill that role. Don't get me wrong, because I certainly don't care what anyone else thinks, but to find out that everyone else knows, too, how humiliating. Hermione huffed a small laugh. I don't think we are exactly well-liked, Gin. She climbed down from the retaining wall and floated around, nudging stones with her boots. I don't see why not. How many times have we saved everyone in that house? Yeah, but we still don't exactly fit in there. I'm so sick of this war. It's stupid and endless, Ginny sighed. The so-called heroes are losing and the villains are losing. What's the fucking point? Hermione bit her lip. In her head, several little fragments of information flew together to form a larger picture. Sometimes the villain wins, she said hesitantly. Ginny frowned at her ever so slightly. Like when? Like, say, if they added 2 new super soldiers to their roster. Maybe changed up their game a little. Hermione stared at her. You want to join the Death Eaters? Ginny said with a laugh. Hermione offered a smile of amusement back. Well, no, but I mean, I don't think I can bring myself to go back to the Order and keep being told day in and day out what a shit person I am and having Romilda fucking Vane walking the corridors wishing you dead. Wait, what? Ginny spluttered with a confused smirk. Oh, yeah. Right before you guys got back, she was saying that she hoped someone took you out so it would be one less psycho to deal with. Hermione rolled her eyes and stepped forward to take the bottle of gin. It hadn't burnt her throat in years, which probably wasn't a good sign. So I told her that she better hope you do come back, otherwise I would burn the house to the ground with everyone in it. Hermione glanced at her sideways. A knife may have been involved. Ginny sighed. I love you, she chuckled, and I'm so glad you're my best friend. Kind of wish I had let Donovan kill her last month. Agreed. Hermione blew out smoke straight above her. So, what are we doing then? Because honestly speaking, I think I'm done too. Today was unnecessary. They have no respect for our experience, your experiments, or what we have done to protect them, and I have no desire to tolerate the humiliation either. Hermione hummed. Speaking of experiments, Hermione pulled the folded up tissue paper from her pocket. Do you remember a few months back when I had that idea about the rings, but Kingsley said it was too dark to approve? Gin thought for a moment. Oh, please tell me you made some. Hermione unfolded the piece of paper and held it out to her. There in the center were 2 very thin bands. One silver with tiny black diamond in the center, and the other black band with a tiny white diamond in the center. Wait, didn't you say we'd need our blood? Hermione nodded. Last month's mission to Hogsmeade, you cut yourself on the rocks, remember? Ginny smirked. Sneaky. You know. All you had to do is ask. Hermione nodded. I know, but I wanted it to be a surprise. Ginny picked up the silver one before pausing and looking at Hermione. Does it matter? Hermione nodded. Yeah, but you grabbed the right one anyway. The idea had been that Hermione could potentially use the metal of the dead diadem Horcrux to make protection rings. They would work in pairs and required the blood of each of the wearers. They would only work if the rings were in close range of each other, of course, and as long as both people wore them. The idea of blood magic, especially using old Horcruxes, tainted with dark magic, was too much for Kingsley. He shut it down immediately and forbidden her from making them, but then again, that shouldn't have surprised her. She couldn't even remember the last time he had approved one of her experiments. But Hermione answers to no one, and so of course she did it anyway. Ginny slipped it on her finger and the ring molded to size. Hermione slipped hers on too and felt the tingle shoot its way up her arm. Ginny chuckled. Well, now we definitely can't go back. Kings would throw us on the street now. Probably accuse us of harnessing Dean's soul or some bullshit. Ginny stared at her friend. Jen, I am serious. She sighed. Looked at the sun, casting shadows off the trees. I can't stand it there. It's suffocating, and God, everyone is so dramatic. Hermione, you're so evil. Hermione, stop killing everyone. Hermione, you look just like them. Ugh. It's never ending. I can't go back, but I understand that it might not be that way for you. Ginny's loud and sudden laugh cut her off. If you think I'm going to miss that place, then you are delusional. Besides, I already told you. Where you go, I go. Well, where shall we go? Hermione asked. We could always see if our talents are better appreciated on the opposing team, as you said. And if not, then I say we go wherever the hell we feel like, Ginny said, far too casually for what they were discussing. You know that if we went rogue now and you wanted to go back to the Order, they would probably still take you. But if we do that, if we join the Death Eaters, then there's no going back to the Order. That would be it. They don't even trust me now as it is, and barely trust you. Ginny shrugged. I've spent enough time with the Order to know we don't fit in there. Why would we want to go back to cheating loser boyfriends, asshole exes who snap wands, and pretentious wannabe ministers who dismiss every brilliant idea you come up with? Hermione turned to look at Jen. Jen, we would end up having to kill members of the Order. You might come face to face with Ron or Harry. When George returns, you might have to. Stop. I don't care. Do you feel bad about Dean? Hermione frowned at her. No, he was the one not following orders. Ginny smiled at her. Right, because everyone in that house knows how we work and operate, and if anyone is stupid enough to face off against us on the field, then that's on them. Do you think I'm going to care if I kill Romalda fucking Vane? No, I am not. The only ones I might care about, and it's only a maybe, are Pads and Parv. As far as I'm concerned, everyone else knows better. Hermione shrugged. Well, at least we know we have insurance if it doesn't go to plan. Ginny stared at the ring on her hand. We should keep this little secret quiet. She pulled out her wand and glamored them with the Notice Me Not charm. This way, we can save it for the perfect moment. Hermione nodded in agreement. Jen, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? Ginny grabbed Hermione's hand and offered her a warm smile. Do you trust me? She asked. Of course. Good. Hermione's stomach pulled inwards, and she was whisked through Ginny's sidelong aspiration. Wherever they landed, it went from being loud and boisterous to very quiet very quickly. Staring back at them in shock was an entire pub full of Death Eaters. Afternoon, boys. Who wants to buy us a drink? Ginny smiled, hands held on either side of her. Well, shit.